Open-world games aren't slowing down, and 2025 is already looking packed. Today, we're looking at 15 open-world games that really made a strong impression, whether it's the scale, the world design, or just the overall vibe. We're not putting these in any order, just a quick look at what's coming. Let's dive in. Now, starting off with the first one on our list is Soulframe. Sometimes a game looks like one thing, feels like another, and ends up somewhere in between. That's exactly what's going on with Digital Extreme's next big project, a fantasy action RPG that brings together weighty melee combat, otherworldly magic, and a whole lot of style. But after spending time with the pre-alpha test, it's clear the game is having a bit of an identity crisis. At first glance, it feels like it's going for a Souls-like vibe. Slow, methodical combat, massive bosses, and that slightly haunting world design. But the difficulty doesn't quite match the intensity you'd expect from a From Software title. Boss fights like Torment Stag look the part but go down a bit too easy. Then there's the multiplayer side of things, which leans more into MMO territory with social hubs and open-world exploration, kind of like Warframe meets World of Warcraft. It borrows ideas from everywhere, but right now those ideas haven't totally clicked together. That said, there's still a lot to like. The art direction is stunning, the soundtrack hits hard in all the right places, and the combat, while not super refined yet, feels good when it's in motion. It's just tough to say what kind of game this is supposed to be. Whether the final release will sharpen its vision or stay in that murky in-between space is still up in the air. But if Digital Extremes can pull it off, this could be a solid new direction for the studio. Moving up next, we have Instinction. There's something about dinosaurs, ancient civilizations, and mysterious valleys that just pulls you in. Instinction builds on that idea and throws you into the role of Isabel Sierra, an ecologist heading into a lost region of the Yucatan Peninsula. What starts as a personal journey to return a family heirloom quickly escalates into a full-on clash between nature, time, and a shadowy organization that may have its own plans for the valley. Gameplay blends exploration and action from both first and third-person views. It's set in an open world filled with dense forests, old temples, and high-tech facilities, all backed by dynamic weather. You'll take on over 25 prehistoric creatures at launch, like Carnotaurus and Kronosaurus, with more to come via DLC. There's co-op for up to 3 players, customizable weapons, side quests like artifact collecting, and puzzle elements that give the game more depth than just shooting your way through dinosaurs. Hashbane Interactive is building this with Unreal Engine 5 and a ton of care, from working with paleontologists to designing realistic sounds and terrain. Originally a small passion project, it's grown thanks to extra funding and a bigger team, now aiming for a 2025 release. It's not trying to replace Dino Crisis. It's doing something new while still hitting those same adrenaline-filled notes. Up next, we have Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Waking up as a 400-year-old vampire elder with a voice in your head and a lot of lost power might sound familiar, but Bloodlines 2 makes it feel wild in the best way. The game doesn't throw you in as some weak fledgling. It lets you taste real power early on. Even in the prologue, you're already scrambling up buildings, dashing through the air, and tossing enemies around with telekinesis. And once you get access to endgame combos, it turns into this chaotic playground of blood-fueled combat where you can literally make someone explode and then use their friend as a puppet. It's violent, fast, and surprisingly tactical. The stealth and mobility give it serious, Dishonored vibes, especially when you're stalking targets from rooftops or using powers like blood bombs, possession, and mind control to toy with enemies before tearing them apart. Combat feels like a rhythm game of destruction and supernatural takedowns all flowing together. Even better, the game doesn't lock you into one style. You can mix clan abilities, set up deadly traps, or just go full brute force. And thanks to how quick feeding is during fights, you're rarely out of juice. But it's not just about the powers and bloodshed. The story digs deep into vampire politics, mystery, and manipulation. You're trying to figure out why you vanished for a century, who sapped your powers, and why there's another vampire's voice living rent-free in your skull. Dialogue matters. Every choice shifts how people see you, and your past behavior colors how they take your words. It's not a system you can game easily. After just a few hours, it's clear that Bloodlines 2 is doing something way more ambitious than just another action RPG. It's stylish, smart, and finally looking like the sequel fans have been waiting for. Coming up next, we have Pioner. Everything about this one leans into that gritty survival shooter vibe. From the rundown Soviet bunkers to the mutant-infested wilderness, you're dropped onto a massive radioactive island where staying alive means more than just pulling the trigger. There's no hand-holding here, no health bars, no enemy levels. Just smart movement, scavenged weapons, and keeping your character fed and rested if you want to make it through the night. Time syncs with real life, so daylight means better visibility and chances to hunt, while nighttime gets eerily quiet until it's not. Combat is grounded, with handcrafted guns made from scrap and powered by strange anomalies or artifacts you find out in the wild. Factions play a big role. Earning their trust opens up new rewards and missions, and some areas are locked behind group-based tasks. PvP has its own huge arena-like region called the Empty Lands, with rules that prevent griefing solo players. Whether you're clearing dungeons, working faction jobs, or just surviving the wilds, there's a strong focus on immersion. There's also a larger story behind the island and what went wrong, and the devs have already confirmed more plot and endgame content post-launch. If you're into survival shooters with a heavy atmosphere and a bit of mystery, this one's definitely worth keeping an eye on. Next on the list, we have Crimson Desert. Medieval fantasy meets the harsh life of a mercenary in this open-world RPG from the creators of Black Desert Online. Crimson Desert drops you into the war-torn continent of Pywell, where you take on the role of Cliff McDuff, a seasoned fighter trying to hold things together while the world fractures around him. The king's in a coma, power-hungry factions are closing in, and you're right in the middle with a crew of unlikely allies. It looks like it's aiming to blend personal storytelling with large-scale conflict in a world that feels rich and full of danger. Combat is fast and heavy with one-on-one duels, boss fights, and swordplay that hits hard. You can fight on horseback, go up against mythical creatures, and use a mix of traditional weapons and gear powered by alchemy. The mercenaries you meet each come with their own story, and your choices will shape how the world reacts. It's fully single-player, but it still feels alive thanks to systems like faction loyalty, resource management, and even downtime activities like fishing, cooking, or solving puzzles. With a release window set for late 2025, Crimson Desert is looking to mix deep role-playing with strong action and give players a lot to dive into. If you're into games that put you in control of your journey through a dynamic world, this one's worth keeping an eye on. Moving forward, we have Squadron 42. After years of development and plenty of speculation, the single-player campaign set in the Star Citizen universe is finally starting to look like a finished game. Squadron 42 was recently shown off during CitizenCon, with a full hour of gameplay that packed in cinematic cutscenes, space dogfights, and on-foot missions. The presentation highlighted the story-driven focus and showed off a cast filled with familiar Hollywood actors, all set against a backdrop of massive space battles and dramatic moments. That first hour is just the prologue, but it already includes intense scripted sequences and sharp-looking visuals. Expect a more guided experience here, something closer to a sci-fi blockbuster than a sandbox. The full game is said to offer 30 to 40 hours of gameplay, with tight pacing and a strong narrative. From FPS sections to flying through asteroid fields, everything looks geared toward delivering a focused and cinematic campaign. Squadron 42 is now aiming for a 2026 release window. According to Cloud Imperium Games, the team is deep into the polish phase to make sure the final product lives up to what's been shown so far. It's still a wait, but for those who've been following the project since the early days, the finish line finally feels within reach. Next up, we have Ertugrul of Ulukayin. This one stands out by pulling from real-world history and folklore rather than just another round of medieval fantasy tropes. Ertugrul of Ulukayin drops you into the Turkic medieval era, right in the middle of a time when Mongol invasions threaten the Seljuk tribes. You'll play as Ertugrul, the father of Osman I, on a quest to find your missing brother and defend your people in the process. The game leans heavily on Turkish mythology, especially the concept of Ulukayin, the Tree of Life, connecting both the physical world and the afterlife. The early moments place you in the shoes of a veiled woman as you explore a small village, meet survivors, and learn the basics. Petting your horse, using enhanced vision, climbing marked spots, and breaking objects to move forward. From there, you shift to Ertugrul himself through a flashback. Combat is straightforward but layered. Enemies have stamina and health bars, which opens up finishers once they're staggered. You'll switch between your sword, shield, and bow, craft items as needed, and tag along with companions like Turgot, who's all brute force, and Mariam, who brings more support-style abilities. There's a skill tree for both you and your companions, and the game hints at future tribe-building systems down the line. The full version is aiming for a second quarter 2025 release. While some systems still need polish and content is limited in the current version, what's here shows potential. It feels like a love letter to both old-school adventure games and Turkish storytelling, and it's definitely one to watch as development continues. Moving up next, we have the Duskbloods. If you're into vampires, brutal combat, and From Software's Dark Worlds, this one's probably already on your radar. The Duskbloods is a PvPvE action game that mixes classic From Software vibes with a more competitive twist. You and up to 7 other players jump into a Gothic, steampunk world full of dangerous enemies and rival hunters, all fighting to claim something called the First Blood. Details are still limited, but the style and tone feel very much like Bloodborne. The gameplay shown so far leans into fast-paced third-person action. One character uses a steampunk jetpack to fly around, another bites enemies to gain powers, and the bosses are huge and aggressive. The world has that familiar Gothic Victorian feel, with massive cathedrals, train stations, and old stone streets. There's a mix of steampunk tech and supernatural elements. Vampires drop into the fight out of nowhere, and it all adds to the chaos. The Duskbloods is expected to launch in 2026 and will be a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive. With Miyazaki directing and only one trailer out so far, it's looking like one of the most exciting games planned for the new console. Up next, we have Days Gone Remastered. Days Gone might have had a rocky start back in 2019, but it's getting a second shot with a fully remastered version landing on PlayStation 5. Days Gone Remastered arrives in April, and it's bringing a whole lot more than just a fresh coat of paint. We're talking visual upgrades, new game modes, and a huge list of accessibility options designed to make the game more approachable for everyone. Bend Studio is leaning into the power of the PS5 here, with enhancements tailored for the Pro model as well. Expect sharper shadows, deeper fog, improved lighting, and even bigger freaker hordes. One new mode called Horde Assault throws up to 800 enemies at you in a single encounter. So if you thought the original game's swarms were wild, this remaster is cranking things up. But what really sets this version apart is how much more customizable it is. You'll be able to tweak everything from subtitle colors to full control remapping. There's a high contrast mode to help with visibility, UI narration, and even audio cues that play through the DualSense controller to help track down hidden collectibles. You can even slow down or speed up gameplay to match your preferred pace. Some of these improvements will also carry over to the PC version. And speaking of PC, there's something new there too. The Broken Road DLC drops the same day on Steam, bringing many of the same features from the PS5 remaster, including a photo mode, Horde Assault, and full DualSense support. It might not be the sequel fans were hoping for, but Days Gone Remastered looks like a solid second chance for a game that had some great ideas, and now finally has the polish to back them up. Coming up next, we have Thorgal. There aren't many games blending Viking myth with grounded storytelling, but this one's going for it. From the team at Mighty Koi, this new action RPG brings the long-running Thorgal comic series to life, mixing Norse gods, brutal sword fights, and a fantasy world full of danger. You play as Thorgal, a warrior with mysterious origins just trying to keep his family safe. But of course, monsters, bandits, and even gods have other plans. It leans into classic RPG elements, with quests pulled from the comics, detailed locations to explore, and plenty of tough choices along the way. Combat looks fast and weighty, with an emphasis on timing and survival over flashy combos. You'll run into familiar faces from the comic, form alliances, and deal with forces that are way bigger than you. The devs are also working on a Souls-like, so chances are the challenge level won't be too forgiving either. There's no release date yet, but it's coming to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. If you're into myth-heavy adventures and want something that's a little off the beaten path, Thorgal's definitely one to keep an eye on. Next on the list, we have Of Ash and Steel. You know when a game feels like it was made by people who genuinely loved RPGs from the early 2000s? That's the energy Of Ash and Steel is channeling. It's a medieval fantasy RPG from a studio called Fire and Frost, founded specifically to revisit that classic, choice-heavy RPG style. No quest markers, no cluttered UI, no excessive guidance. Instead, you're dropped into a war-torn land and left to navigate it on your own. You play as a rugged, unrefined protagonist who begins as a nobody and might end up influencing the fate of the kingdom. He's not exactly bursting with personality, more like the default cover model for a fantasy novel, but the developers are promising light customization and a storyline that adds depth over time. The combat system mixes swordplay, archery, and improvised tactics. You can even use bottles or rocks as weapons. There's a cinematic kill cam too, but it's not all combat. You'll also be fishing, crafting, cooking, looting, and exploring a world that leans more atmospheric than punishing. Crafting goes beyond basics, with customizable weapon parts and detailed alchemy. Environments shift with dynamic weather and time-of-day music cues, creating a sense of place even when you're wandering without direction. As for the story, we don't have the full picture yet, but it includes rival factions, branching paths, and the kind of choices that are meant to shape your journey. You'll be able to align with different groups: smugglers, bounty hunters, and a faction called the Gravediggers, which sounds sketchy in the best way. Right now, Of Ash and Steel isn't trying to rewrite the genre, but if the writing delivers and the world feels alive, it could be one of the more intriguing fantasy RPGs coming up. Moving forward, we have Halo 7. It's been a long road for Halo, but the next entry might just be the fresh start the series needs. Officially in development using Unreal Engine 5, the next Halo, whether it ends up being called Halo 7 or something else entirely, looks like it's heading toward a full reboot. And for many fans, that's exactly the right move. With Halo Infinite leaving behind more questions than answers, starting over could finally give this universe the focus and momentum it's been missing. The choice of Unreal Engine 5 is already generating buzz. Early visuals shared by the studio have struck a chord with longtime players. It's the kind of style that brings back memories of how combat evolved felt, not just how it looked. Alpha Halo has never looked more alive. It's both familiar and mysterious, and with this new engine, the world has a real chance to look just as incredible as we've always imagined it. What the story will focus on is still unclear, but there's strong hope that this reboot will go beyond retelling what we already know. Some fans are calling for it to bring in more of the extended universe, characters and moments from the Halo novels that have been overlooked for years. If Halo Studios can blend that lore with sharp gameplay and a stronger sense of direction, the next Halo could be the reset that puts the series back on top. Next up, we have a Silent Desolation. There's something really compelling about survival games that leave you completely on your own, and this game does exactly that. Developed solo by one person, this game places you on a post-apocalyptic Earth, centuries after humanity left the planet behind. You're a lone traveler who crash lands back on Earth, and your only chance at survival is to explore the ruins, gather supplies, and restore a long-abandoned launch base. With no guidance or help, you're left to manage your oxygen, power, and gear, while staying out of sight from strange and deadly threats that roam the world. The gameplay focuses heavily on planning and resource management. You'll scavenge materials, craft tools, set up outposts, and mine rare resources to repair and upgrade your equipment. The quality of the materials you find matters. Better stuff lasts longer and handles the environment more effectively. You'll have to place oxygen stations, build shelters to survive acid rain, and gather food and water while keeping an eye on toxic zones and other hazards. Each decision, from crafting to where you build a base, plays a big role in how far you get. What makes this game stand out is its quiet, eerie world and the sense of isolation it creates. You're not just trying to stay alive, you're trying to understand what happened here. Strange creatures respond to sound, the weather can turn against you, and forgotten technology hides pieces of the planet's story. Bringing the old launch base back online isn't just about escaping. It's a small sign of progress in a place that feels completely abandoned. If you're into solo survival games with a focus on exploration and atmosphere, a Silent Desolation is definitely worth watching. Next up is Project S, a third-person sci-fi action game from South Korea's Lionheart Studio, first revealed at G-Star 2024. Built with Unreal Engine 5, this one gives off definite Death Stranding vibes with its eerie landscapes and isolated tone, but the gameplay looks more in line with titles like The Division or The First Descendant. It's a mix of tight combat, large-scale exploration, and a story centered on survival during an alien invasion. You'll be defending the last human strongholds while venturing into abandoned shelters in search of whatever might tip the scales back in humanity's favor, possibly some kind of weapon or lost technology. What's been shown so far features detailed environments, oversized alien threats, and a striking art style that helps Project S stand out even in a crowded genre. Details on systems like co-op or progression are still under wraps, but there's already enough here to get excited about. If the final game delivers on its promise of tense encounters and atmospheric storytelling, Project S could be one of those surprise hits you won't want to miss. And finally, we have Gothic 1 Remake, the return of a cult classic with some serious upgrades. Originally released in 2001, Gothic helped define the modern action RPG. Now it's getting a full remake from Alchemia Interactive, built in Unreal Engine 5 and coming to PC and consoles in 2025. The team behind the remake isn't just modernizing the visuals, they're reworking combat, controls, and UI while staying true to the original's core systems. You're still the nameless hero, starting with no skills, climbing your way up through a dangerous open world shaped by faction choices and survival. Expect better enemy AI, deeper animations through motion capture tech, and expanded systems for crafting, cooking, and weaponsmithing. And the world? It's not just prettier, it's bigger too. The team is filling in cut content from the original, adding new areas, quests, and lore, especially around the orcs and how you interact with them. They've also brought back original composer Kai Rosenkrantz to reimagine the soundtrack, and they're reworking dialogue to be more dynamic, with voice acting in multiple languages, including returning German voice actors from the 2001 release. And yeah, there's even mod support. Sort of. While Unreal Engine isn't the most mod-friendly, Alchemia says they'll provide a scripting language to help the community get creative. If you grew up with Gothic, this remake sounds like a faithful yet much-needed refresh. And if you've never played it, 2025 might be the perfect time to dive in. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. Don't forget to click the bell icon to get notified when I upload new content. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And check out these other videos you might like. See you in the next one.